In an age of chaos and betrayal, when loyalty was a currency easily spent, one man stood as a pillar of unshakable devotion. He fought in 57 battles, facing down the most legendary warriors of his time. He was called a demon, a monster, a warrior beyond human limits, but in all those battles, he never received a single wound. This is the story of Honda Tadakatsu, the shogun's greatest spear, the warrior who knew no scars. Tadakatsu was born in 1548 into a world of fire and blood. He was a son of the Honda clan, a family whose entire identity was built on one principle: absolute loyalty to their lords, the Matsudaira clan, who would one day become the great Tokugawa. This was a legacy sealed in sacrifice. Tadakatsu's grandfather died saving his lord. His own father was killed in battle just a year after he was born. Raised by his uncle, Tadakatsu learned from infancy that a warrior's life had one purpose: to be a shield for his master. His master was a young man named Matsudaira Motoyasu, who would later be known as Tokugawa Ieyasu. At the time, Ieyasu was no shogun. He was a minor lord, a pawn in the games of larger clans. In the complex hierarchy of the samurai, Tadakatsu's family were Fudai hereditary vassals. This wasn't just a job, it was a sacred, multi-generational pact. For Tadakatsu, protecting Ieyasu was not a choice, it was his destiny. He made his debut on the battlefield at the age of just 13. He quickly became a legend. At the Battle of Anagawa, he charged headlong and alone into the enemy army, breaking their formation and inspiring his allies to victory. He wielded his famous spear, the Tandakiri or dragonfly cutter, so named because a dragonfly that dared to land on its blade was instantly sliced into. This spear, and his iconic deer antler helmet, became symbols of death. His finest early moment came from his lord's greatest defeat. At the Battle of Mikata-Gahara, Ieyasu's army was crushed by the legendary warlord Takeda Shingen. As the Tokugawa forces fled in chaos, Tadakatsu volunteered for the most dangerous duty of all, the rearguard. He and a tiny contingent of soldiers stood as a lone wall between their fleeing lord and the entire Takeda army. His bravery was so impressive that even the enemy generals praised him, calling him a warrior too great for Ieyasu. Battle after battle, Tadakatsu carved out a reputation as an invincible demon, but his loyalty was about to face its ultimate test against a new power rising in Japan, the ambitious Hashiba Hideyoshi. After the assassination of the great unifier Oda Nobunaga, Japan was once again on the brink of civil war. The two most powerful men left standing were Nobunaga's brilliant general, Hashiba Hideyoshi, and Tokugawa Ieyasu. A direct clash was inevitable. This conflict, the Battle of Komaki-Nagakute in 1584, would be the only time these two titans of history would ever face each other directly in battle. During the campaign, Ieyasu was lured away from his main camp, leaving it dangerously undermanned. Hideyoshi, sensing a kill, personally led a massive army of 80,000 men to crush his rival's headquarters. Ieyasu was miles away, completely unaware. The only thing standing between Hideyoshi's army and total victory was a small fort, manned by Honda Tadakatsu and a mere 500 soldiers. From the walls of his fort, Tadakatsu saw the unthinkable, a sea of enemy banners stretching to the horizon, numbered more than 100 to 1. His men were paralyzed with fear. Retreat was logical, surrender was sensible. But Honda Tadakatsu was not a logical man, he was a loyal one. In a move of almost insane bravery, Tadakatsu did not hide behind his walls. He threw open the gates, mounted his horse, and led his tiny force directly out into the open. They didn't charge, they simply marched forward and arrayed themselves for battle right in front of Hideyoshi's advancing vanguard, a tiny island in an ocean of enemy soldiers. Then, he did something that stunned every soldier watching. He rode to the river separating the two armies, dismounted, and began to calmly wash his horse. It was an act of supreme, almost arrogant confidence. This was not the behavior of a cornered rat. It was the behavior of a man setting a trap. This was brilliant psychological warfare. In the samurai mindset, such blatant disregard for overwhelming odds could mean only one thing: a trick. Hideyoshi's generals hesitated. Was Ieyasu's main army hidden nearby? Tadakatsu's sheer audacity created doubt. From a nearby hill, Hideyoshi watched the entire spectacle unfold. He was so moved by Tadakatsu's unparalleled bravery and loyalty that he gave a direct order. "Do not harm that general," he commanded. He recognized that to kill a man so devoted was not a victory, but a crime against the very spirit of the samurai. He ordered his forces to take a detour, leaving Tadakatsu and his men completely untouched. He had faced down an army of 80,000 with just 500 men and emerged without a scratch. But what happens to a perfect warrior when the wars end? Tadakatsu's greatest challenge was yet to come: surviving the peace. After the standoff at Komaki-Nagakute, Ieyasu made a political calculation. He submitted to Hideyoshi's authority, becoming his most powerful vassal. For Tadakatsu, this meant sheathing his spear. But peace was temporary. After Hideyoshi's death, the final battle for control of Japan loomed. In 1600, at the Battle of Sekigahara, Tadakatsu was once again on the front lines for his lord. Though he was now in his 50s, his presence was as terrifying as ever, contributing significantly to the Tokugawa victory that would finally usher in a new era. For his lifetime of service, Ieyasu rewarded Tadakatsu handsomely. He was made the lord of the Kuwana domain. The warrior became a ruler. He proved to be as skilled in administration as he was in battle, building a castle, developing the town, and governing his people wisely. His character was revealed not just in war, but in family. His daughter, Komatsuhime, was married into the Sanada clan. At Sekigahara, her husband's family sided with the enemy. After the Tokugawa victory, they were slated for execution, but Tadakatsu, the man who was a demon to his enemies, pleaded with Ieyasu for their lives. Because of his immense service and Ieyasu's respect for him, their lives were spared. It showed the great heart within the unkillable warrior. But as the Tokugawa shogunate was established, Japan entered an age of unprecedented peace. The sound of swords was replaced by the sound of commerce and construction. For a man like Tadakatsu, who was forged in the crucible of war, this new world was a foreign land. His skills, once essential, were becoming relics of a bygone era. The invincible warrior began to decline. In his later years, he suffered from illness, including problems with his eyesight. The world was moving on, and he was being left behind. The man who was a god on the battlefield felt like a ghost in the halls of peace. His purpose, which had burned so brightly for 50 years, was beginning to fade. In 1609, he retired. A year later, the end would come, but the story of his death is as legendary as the story of his life, beginning not on a battlefield, but with a tiny, insignificant wound from a carving knife. The legend says that when Honda Tadakatsu cut his finger with that small carving knife, he stared at the blood and knew his time had come. "Even a warrior like myself," he reportedly said, "can be wounded now that my end is near." The man who was invincible to swords and spears had finally been touched by a blade. He died peacefully of illness in 1610, at the age of 63. His death poem revealed the singular focus of his entire existence: loyalty to his lord. "If only I could die, oh, if only I could die, when I think of the deep on of my lord." On is a Japanese concept of a profound, lifelong debt of gratitude. To his last breath, Tadakatsu's only regret was that he could no longer serve the man to whom he had dedicated his life. His legacy was immediately cemented as the ideal samurai. He was so respected that all three of the great unifiers of Japan are said to have praised him. Oda Nobunaga called him a true flower of a warrior. Toyotomi Hideyoshi called him the greatest general in the East. And his own lord, Tokugawa Ieyasu, famously said that Tadakatsu was too good for him, a treasure he did not deserve. He became the benchmark against which all other warriors were measured. His title, the warrior stronger than the shogun, was not an insult to Ieyasu, but the highest possible compliment to them both. But Tadakatsu's story is also a quiet tragedy. What is the purpose of a perfect weapon when there are no more wars to fight? He was a man perfectly adapted to a violent, chaotic world. When that world was replaced by the very peace he helped to build, he became a relic. His life poses a timeless question: can a person defined by struggle ever truly find peace? Today, Honda Tadakatsu remains one of the most popular figures of the Sengoku period. He is a staple in video games, anime, and films, always portrayed as the strongest samurai. Today, Honda Tadakatsu remains one of the most popular figures of the Sengoku period. He is a staple in video games, anime, and films, always portrayed as the strongest samurai. He was a rock in a world of shifting tides, a warrior so devoted that even his enemies had to admire him. He was, and remains, the ultimate samurai.